Hi, everybody. My name is Laura Hodson. Most of you know me as Miss Hodson. I taught at Johnson for 22 and a half years, quite likely the best 22 and a half years of my life. I enjoyed my time there immensely and was very sad when I had to leave, because I had to choose my nuclear family over my extended family, and that's how I see Johnson. Johnson is a community. It is a community that was my family, and I know that many teachers and students and staff feel the same way about Johnson. Um, I've been asked to share with you some of my impressions or memories about Johnson. I was involved in a lot of different things. I remember Camp Olympia in its various iterations. I was the yellow banana of first aid. Every year I wore my big yellow raincoat, and everybody knew that that was, where you had to come to get your Band-Aid or your medicine. Um, camp and that raincoat came out of my very first time at Campo, where I didn't really prepare for rain, and we had torrential rain for 3 days straight and mud up to my knees, and I said never again. So the yellow banana was born. Another favorite memory of mine are all the times I went on the Salesian leadership retreats. As you know, Johnson is very connected to the Salesian brothers and sisters. And other Father Dave, Sister Pat, Miss Feliciano Clark, all participated in those retreats. They were a marvelous opportunity to engage in some introspection and some exploration of our faith. And I think that was a really important part of Johnson for me as well. And moving on a few years later, really just before I left, we had the Flame Fashion Show, which celebrated diversity at Johnson. And I got to participate in that and walk the catwalk, which was really quite something else. I don't think I ever want to do that again, but it was fun at the time. And last but not least, I was very privileged to have worked with some extraordinary human beings on the yearbook from basically the time that I started until the day that I left. These extraordinary human beings, one of which is now your vice principal, have changed my life in lots of ways. And I think that that is what a school should be about. It should be about change and opportunity. And Johnson was that for me. And I still communicate with these fabulous human beings. I've been to weddings and seen babies born. And this is part of what makes Johnson special and has a very special place in my heart. I was asked to talk about a funny memory. This is funny and not. When we moved into the new building, so maybe I should preface this with I was there for when we moved out of the building to Regina Pacis. We, as the science department, packed 800 boxes because the science department doesn't just have textbooks and blackboards and all of those sorts of things. It is the equivalent in every room of at least 2 kitchens. And so we packed 5 kitchens, which is quite remarkable. And the science staff upstairs at that time, and then really upstairs now, was phenomenal. I believe that Mr. Carty is still at Johnson, and he helped me pack. So that was one of those moments that was difficult at the time. We lived out of boxes for quite a while and then moved back in and lived out of boxes for another while. After that, though, very shortly after we were in the new building, we had a fire. We had a fire that was set off in the exhaust fans of the construction zone of the school. where where the wood shop is. And someone decided that it would be a very good idea to use an arc welder on to weld the metal exhaust fan after it had already been used in shop. And so as a science teacher, I used to do something called the psyllium experiment, and maybe some of your teachers still do, although I think we're not allowed to anymore. They would blow dust into the air and then light it on fire, and you'd see a big kaboom. Well, that's what happened when the arc welder was used on the construction on the construction exhaust pipe, because it was full of aerosolized sawdust, and kaboom. Um, it was February. It was -30. It was chaos, controlled, but chaos. We lost shoes in the snow. We were without coats. It was really quite something else, but all's well that ends well. We know how to exit a building. We learned how to use uh, our sites. Some of us were in the church next door. Some of us were in St. Benny's. Some of us were at Salvation Army. Um, but we came together as a building, and as a community, to support each other through that, because there were some pretty scared people, and it was, yes, at the time it was scary, but looking back on it, I can see that we really pulled together as a community again. We're family, and I will go back to that. Communitas was the name of the book. And I still feel that way about Johnson. Johnson is my family, my extended family. I've been asked to talk a little bit more about the yearbook. And I've said already that the yearbook for me was about the extraordinary human beings that built that book. Among their incredible accomplishments that you can see every year in the books that we have archived at school is a Tera drive that contains 63 gigs worth of photos from the first day that I was at the school until well after I left, and which are probably being used for the purposes of wall hangings and shows to this day. And I know that photos speak loudly. They, there's the saying that a photo is worth 1,000 words. I think it's probably worth more than that. And I know that you will see those photos and remember all the wonderful things and all the wonderful people, extraordinary people that you had the privilege to work with, live with, sing with, dance with, learn with while you were at Johnson. And that goes for staff and students. One of the things that family does is that they support each other through challenging times. And Johnson has lost 2 incredible women teachers, and lost them during the time that I was there. The first was Lucy Connolly, who was the backbone of the science department. She was the science department head right before I was. She passed that role to me when she moved on to Michael Power. But her death was felt throughout the building. And when her funeral was held at St. Benedict's, the church couldn't hold all of the staff and students who wanted to be there to honor her. She was an amazing example to staff and students, always had a smile on her face, was gentle, kind, and super smart, and made chemistry accessible to more students than I can count. The other woman, and a very good friend of mine, was Claire Bonk. Claire was the backbone of the math department. She loved teaching, and she loved the challenge of the most difficult student in the room. It was her great pleasure to interact and teach and work with those students so that they could learn. And she did it in math, which is one of those subjects that students really resist if they can. She was loved by staff. She was loved by students. And when she passed away, the entire building mourned. We felt the loss of her for a very long time. I still feel that loss. She was my friend, and a wonderful friend and supporter. She was just a magnificent person, exceptional in every way. And I know that there are still humans at Johnson that remember and hold her dear and remain affected by that loss.